Hey, founders, Kirk Michie here. So as you can tell, we're in a different spot. I'm out in New York this week. Had dinner the other night with a rock star founder of a really successful CPG company. For those not in our world, that's consumer packaged goods. It refers to a whole range of things, but it is often what private equity firms call that kind of retail product. But the point of that, we're talking about this quarterly M&A breakfast that I hosted a while back, and we did a case study on a company that had taken in growth capital, had then gone on several years later to really successfully sell itself to a much larger strategic buyer. But at the time, we didn't know any of that. They had just taken in their growth capital, and we had about 30 merger and acquisition or deal professionals in the room, roughly a third investment bankers, a third private equity investors, and a third service providers like accounting, legal services. Interestingly, what I was recounting to her was that all of the investment bankers thought that the company should have sold rather than taken in the growth capital. All the private equity investors thought they should have taken in the growth capital and waited to sell. And again, nobody knew how this was going to turn out. My comment to her was, isn't it interesting that the people who do what I do, the ones that get paid when things get sold, all thought that the founders should sell? And I was, kind of pointing a little bit of a barb at, kind of my own industry, which if you pay attention to my stuff, you see that I do plenty. She brought up a few other things. She said, well, what you don't know is that, sometimes the founder, should have sold instead of taking in the growth capital and moving on to another exit, because maybe the founder got diluted enough that the bigger exit down the road didn't really make them that much more money than maybe the growth capital, that came in. Or maybe the private equity firm ends up screwing it up and the founder never gets an outcome. Or maybe there are challenges that the founder is going to run into, even with the growth capital and all the other resources of the private equity firm, that will prove to be insurmountable and things won't work out. What she was talking about in a nutshell is selling your company as a method of risk control. Now, what I'm talking about here is not, kind of killing your dream mid-fruition, but more of a, hey, look, if your company's gotten to the point where you can no longer really effectively manage the growth and there's not a natural successor, or you can't recruit in a CEO, and you can get to a good outcome and either endow the rest of your life so that you don't have to work again or fund your next adventure, then maybe risk control and avoiding problems that could come up on the horizon, or essentially, kind of taking the win early, even if it's smaller, those might be good reasons for selling. Again, this comes from an entrepreneur who will be in a position to sell at some point, and who has, for the record, also got some investors in the business. So passing that along as sort of call it an entrepreneurial public service announcement. All right, that's it for now. Have a great week.